Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Rive creative session. My name is Zach. I'm on the creative team. I'm one of the developer relations people here at Rive. And yeah, if you're new here, we do this every Wednesday. One of us on the creative team will kind of build something fun, either in the Rive editor, or in this case today, we'll be building something with code at runtime. And yeah, so this is kind of the theme for Wednesdays. We have a concurrent stream if you're interested in checking it out at some point. It's a Spanish live stream that we have. And so that features other creative team members. But yeah, today we're going to be just solo here. And if you're interested in uh, checking out how the web runtime works, which is what we'll be working with today, um, feel free to stick around. And so just to kind of preview what we're going to be building today, we are going to be doing we're going to be creating a small app. Um, it's not going to be production ready or anything at all, but wanted to play around with Google Maps APIs. And that's part of the kind of Google Cloud suite of APIs that you can subscribe to. It's free to try out, and you just need an account to sign up and get access to those APIs. But the reason I was interested in working with Google Maps APIs is because I was curious, those Google Maps markers, the red pins that kind of show up, maybe if you're searching for an address, a destination. Um, I was kind of curious to see, well, those are pretty static. I wonder if they allow for dynamic content. Um, and I actually wondered this for quite a while and was one of the first things I kind of wanted to tinker with when I joined Drive. But I think at the time, the Google Maps API offerings didn't have a way to inject custom HTML content as a Google Maps marker. You could do small things, I think, like changing some styles of the actual Google Maps marker, but nothing super crazy, nothing interactive, nothing animated, I think. And yeah, so I wanted to, see if recently, if anything has changed there. And I think from an update in late 2022, they did have an update where you can create much more dynamic, animated content, and that's a lot more free for these Google Maps markers. And yeah, I was curious to see if we could inject Rive into it, and turns out you can. So that's kind of what we'll be playing with today. If you've seen my streams before, I love playing with the web JS runtime or the React runtime. One, because that's my strength and my yeah, what I'm most comfortable with. But also, I think there's a wide array of use cases for Rive in the web, and specifically playing with other technologies. Rive playing with other APIs and technologies out there. So in the past, I've done uh, things where we've shown Rive with TensorFlow, so you can do like motion detection and things like that. And I just think it's super fun and fascinating to try and find ways we can combine different technologies to make simple prototypes that hopefully someone kind of down the line can take the reins with and build something even cooler. And so just to give you a little sneak peek before we dive into the code of it all of what we're going to be doing. um, Hey, everyone in chat. Also, feel free to leave any questions. Um, I will be checking it occasionally when I glance over at my stream, and yeah, I'll be happy to answer whatever I can while I'm doing this. So let me go to this. All right, and I'm gonna do a much better job than my last grade stream of sharing the screen. Um, Wait. This cool. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building this. We're going to be using the Google Maps API. So this should, look like a standard Google Maps app. You've got the map. You can scroll in. You can do all that native functionality that you can on the website. And they've got this cool demo and some cool code snippets where you can see these are custom Google Maps markers. They call these advanced maps markers, I think. And with the advanced maps markers, again, what you can do is you can tell Google Maps like, hey, for this pin that I want to set down, um, insert this custom HTML. that we'll generate. And so you'll see how we'll kind of build this up. But here's an example that Google Maps has on their documentation. So for example, you can click on these different icons. They show up these pop-ups. And yeah, there's some click handlers that are kind of outside the breadth of Rive that kind of help make this happen. But yeah, again, this is all static. So I think it'd be really fun if we can try and make these a little more dynamic. Not these icons per se specifically, but um, custom Rive things. And I'm going to be employing the help of JC from our creative team. He provided me with a nice asset to kind of go off of for this prototype. So shout out to JC for creating this Rive. I'm going to stop sharing screen. And okay, I see a few questions. Um, cool. Let me just go through these real quick. So can we set initial input values at the runtime, like when it's loaded? Um, yes, you should be able to. It depends on the runtime. There's different ways of doing it. Um, basically, so for I'm gonna talk from the Flutter example, Flutter perspective because there's a lot of Flutter users. But with Flutter, you can kind of compose your Rive files. So you can load in the Rive file. Um, and fetch the asset before you actually render anything like on the canvas. Um, and once you load in the Rive file, you can set up things like your artboard and your state machine. Again, all before things actually render on the canvas. And if you can create your state machine, then you can create from your state machine controller, which is how you can use the state machine in the Flutter runtime. You can grab reference to the actual input and set the value before you actually render anything. So you can set the value in some kind of like init method of your class or your stateful widget. And once you've set all the inputs, then you can actually render out your Rive widget. With the web runtime, you can do something pretty similar. There's an onload callback that you can set where you can set this, where you can grab the state machine inputs then. Um, that may not be like the ideal timing depending on how you set things. Oh, I see. So how about in React? Uh, I believe, yeah. So with React, there's a use state machine input hook. Um, and so this is kind of a helper to grab a reference to a state machine input value for your React component. So you don't have to kind of do the whole dance of grabbing state machine inputs through the Rive instance from use Rive. And with the use state machine input, I think it's like the fourth parameter, you can provide a default value for that state machine input. And so you can set like your Boolean inputs to true or false initially. Um, it's not super reactive, I believe, right now, in that like if you set to true and then later on a prop coming from above changes it to false, I don't think it will actually honor that change because, of course, that's after it's loaded. And I don't think that specific hook is listening for any parameter changes to change Rive accordingly. But yeah, I would check out the docs on the use state machine input hook and hope. I think it should uh, spell out in the fourth parameter that there's like a default value you can set there. Um, but yeah, if you have troubles there, feel free to reach out on Discord or leave an issue in GitHub. Another question: is it possible to link with Framer? Um, yes. Yeah, you can. If you in the Rive editor, you can create a share link and export your Riv as a share link. And in the share link options, there's a few different options for like an iframe embed option. Um, there's also options for a Framer code snippet. And so these are kind of React code snippets that you can just copy and paste as a code component in Framer. And we do have docs on that in our help.rive.app, Rive guide, we're calling it now. And yeah, it should go over step by step how to add your Rive files and control them in Framer. So yeah, there's a few options with Framer there, but that's probably the nicest, most powerful one. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go share this whole screen now. Um, all right. Do let me know if the text is too tiny, and I'm happy to zoom in a bit. I'm a little zoomed in on my end, but I'm happy to do it if it still looks a little funky on the viewer end. But just wanted to quickly go over the asset that we'll be integrating as a interactive Google Maps marker. And so if you saw the preview, maybe on Twitter, it's been reposted a few times. Uh, I showed a quick snippet of a, a Rive asset as a Google Maps marker, and we'll be showing how to integrate that. But this is the asset that one of my teammates, JC, made. So we've got this simple artboard here, just one artboard, and this pin. And so if I run the state machine, you can see it's idling. So it's static in the beginning, but if I do hover over the actual thing, you can see it gives a little nice bounce animation. And because I'm sharing my whole screen, it may not look super smooth, but I promise it actually does look smooth in person. And so, yeah, you can see here it's got that hover listener and it's toggling this is hover input here for this motion state machine. And so if we have time, we can maybe riff on this, add more functionality, but we'll see how timing goes at the end. But yeah, I want to basically make it so that if I hover over this as a Google Maps marker in my app, it will do this bouncy animation. And then we'll look at how to use state machine inputs to make it even further functional. Cool. So I've already set up my code sandbox here. Um, the Google Maps API docs have this kind of sandbox link. I'll try and find it. It might be here. Yeah, yeah. If you look at the Google Maps documentation for adding markers to the map, you can see here they've got that same example that I was just showing. And at the bottom of the docs here, you can see try sample, and you can download a version of like the jsfiddle.net or a Google Cloud Shell. And I think this will actually download like a code sandbox for you or something like that. And so you can try it out on your own locally or in Code Sandbox. Um, but yeah, so just to get started with how do we actually load the Maps API in? I'm gonna give you a brief rundown of like what this project how it's structured at first. So it's a pretty basic. I believe this is a parcel or Vite app. Yeah, Vite. So there's not too many dependencies, but it's using Vite, which is a nice build tool and bundler for JavaScript. It's kind of, I think, in ways similar to like Webpack, but a lot easier to use. And so in this example project that Google has provided as like a skeleton, this is what we're using here. So it's got a basic index HTML file, and you can see here there's not too much on this page here. We've got some scripts that we're loading in. In particular, you can notice that we're loading in the Rive runtime, which for the web runtime, if you're not familiar, you can go to our help.rive.app docs for the Rive guide. And in the runtime section, you can check out the WebJS part. You can see there's a few different ways to install the web Rive runtime into your projects. In this case, we're just doing a simple script tag. I'm going to be referencing a local JavaScript file, which is where most of our logic is going to be contained, some styles, and you can ignore this for now. We'll be revisiting this a little later, but I'm going to work with an autocomplete part so you can type in destinations and add markers dynamically. So we'll come back to that, but for the actual map part, you can see that uh, uh, it's just a div here, and oh, that's interesting. Uh, Rive will um, sorry, the Google Maps API will kind of insert everything from referencing this div ID map. Sorry, I like got distracted for a moment because I saw that the Rive app commented on something on Twitch. Anyway, I'm gonna ignore this for now. Cool. And then the last thing here is probably this script tag. I'm not going to show what it is because this holds my Google Maps API keys. And definitely don't want that recorded and live streamed. But um, this script holds the kind of code snippet that Google Maps provides you, so you can load in the Google Maps APIs, and we'll be dynamically loading in the parts of the APIs that we want to use. Um, and just to show this real quick, the Google Maps platform has great documentation. It's very extensive. It can be a little easy to get lost in it, but just start your way at getting started pages and work your way around. But you can see here there's this load the maps JavaScript API. And what that script that I have, do not show this, is this use dynamic library import, which is the way that Google Maps recommends you import the Google Maps library. So you can see here it's got the script tag. You don't have to worry about what it means, but the only thing you have to do is insert your API key, which is something that you get when you create a new project for the Google Maps APIs and you sign up on the Google Maps platform. And again, yeah, they've got a whole overview on how to get started with this. So I'm going to kind of just gloss over that. Just basically, this script is setting up all the keys and stuff so I can tap into their APIs. All right. Moving on, I've got my JavaScript. So I'm going to start at the top here and just kind of briefly go over what parts of these parts of the script is. Maybe zoom in one more time. Okay, so everything starts off with this call to init map. So this is the first function that's called at the very bottom. And you can see in init map, what I'm doing in my function is I'm importing the different libraries, like I mentioned, dynamically for the different APIs that I want to use. So I want to use the map API because that's how I'm going to actually get the map on the screen. I'm going to import this lat long API from this core library. And then I'm also going to be importing from the advanced marker element. And this is how we create these advanced markers in our app. And so right off the bat, this sample, what it's doing is it's hard coding a center on, I think, San Francisco or Mountain View or something like that, given the latitude and longitude, and creating a new map object from the library. So I'm pulling in the API to create a map from Google Maps. And I'm simply here instantiating a new map. And the first thing I pass in is the actual reference of, hey, where is the map going to go? It's going to go into that div ID map property that we saw in index.html, which again was this little thing. So I'm passing it a reference to that element. And then there are some options that are set. So like a zoom level, where to center around, and also a map ID, which is something that you configure in your Google Maps platform portal. And then what it's doing here for that sample app is it's going over this list of properties. And this list of properties for now is just an array of hard-coded properties. I think this was meant to be a sample app for like kind of showing real estate prices and houses and things like that. So this is all centered around different properties in Mountain View. And the code here is iterating over each of those properties and creating a new advanced marker element. And this new advanced marker element is this part here. So for each property, it's creating this content. And the first thing that you pass in is this map. So the actual map that we created, and we have a reference to that. This content, and this is the part where we actually build the HTML content that makes up the marker, the position of where to place that marker on the map, and a title. Right now, I just called it blah. But it's like if you hover over this for a while, I think, or in some cases, it would show like the title here. Cool. I'm going to step into this build content very briefly. What it's doing is it's programmatically using some web APIs to, programmatically build up this HTML for, what these icons are. And it also has the HTML for this like pop-up that shows up when you click on the actual icon. So here's some markup for actually building that out. But we're going to be ripping most of that out and focusing on how we actually build Rive content. Cool. So just to kind of show you guys where some of this docs is, there's kind of like two different documentation for the Google Maps markers APIs. One are these like kind of guides that guide you and show you samples of how to create advanced markers and other ways of using the Maps APIs. But they've also got the actual API documentation that shows you the different properties that you can set, different options when you're creating and using these APIs. So if you want to delve further than what we're going to be doing today, recommend checking both documentation pieces out here. Sweet. So yeah, let's just get started and build out our Rive pieces here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to replace all these markers with that Rive asset that I showed in the Rive editor, that bouncing one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new element here called const canvas element. Okay. And I'm going to set a style of this to 100% on width and height. And oh, just like last time, I also want to put in background music so it's not super awkward. Uh, um, I want to give each canvas an ID. So in this example, we're going to have a canvas for each of these markers. In essence, we're going to be creating a Rive instance for each of these different markers. So we need to differentiate each of these canvases somehow. I'm going to create, or I'm going to tell it its ID is going to be equal to canvas. Canvas dash, and I'll give this an IDX, where IDX will represent the number in the list of properties that we're going to be putting these markers in. I'm going to set IDX as a parameter here, and so when I build the content, I need to pass in a second parameter. You can see here, as we're iterating over the array, I want to get the index of the property in the array. I'm going to just create a variable here and set I plus plus. So we're going to be iterating and incrementing I every time. Cool. And then I want to take out this I, because I think this is where the actual icon lives. And just do canvas L dot outer h2. Cool. All right, so yeah, I've replaced all the icons with a blank canvas right at the moment. And this is nice. We have a canvas that'll render on the DOM. And I bet if I can debug this a bit, let me see. Yeah, so if I go into a single property, you can see here I've got my canvas element that's rendering. It's a little tiny, probably hard to see on stream, but we've got a few different canvases going on for each of these markers. And like, if you're unfamiliar with the web API, the web runtime for Rive, we need a canvas element. That's what Rive draws onto to actually get the graphics onto the web. A quick question from Jeff. Is this TypeScript? Yes, this is TypeScript. Some of it is very loose TypeScript. So if you see any red squiggles, it's probably because TypeScript is containing that it doesn't know what type I'm actually using. Good question. Cool. All right. So now I'm building my content. I've got my canvases rendering for each of these markers. I'm going to go back to where we actually create that advanced marker element. So again, this build content is actually building up that HTML. And now what I want to do is I want to create the Rive instance now that I have a canvas element. And so let me go back to my notes. Okay. So now I'm going to create a Rive instance, and you'll see there's going to be a little caveat to how we create Rive. I'm going to be importing from the web runtime, which is Rive app/canvas. I'm going to be importing some APIs, and the main one I'm going to be using is this Rive bit. This is how we instantiate Rive. So I'm going to be doing const r is equal to new Rive, creating a new Rive instance. And here's where we pass in all our different parameters. And you'll see here it mirrors a lot of the steps and the configuration that is in our getting started guide for the web runtime for Rive. So feel free to check out the documentation here to learn further what each of these parameters mean. So the first thing I want to set is the source. So my first source is going to be the Rive file, which I've already included in my project somewhere. Yeah, marker Rive. I put it at the base of my project. And when I deploy this project, maybe I publish it on like Vercel or any other platform where I want to publish my website. The project is set up so that some of my basic assets are exposed at the root level of my site. So if I deployed this at like foo.com, to get my Rive asset, it would be foo.com/ marker_.riv. And so the source that you provide to the actual Rive API when you're trying to instantiate Rive on the web is basically the path to where your Rive asset lives publicly. This is not the absolute or relative source or path to wherever your Rive asset is in your project. That's been a little misconstrued and kind of a big point of confusion that we hope to kind of clarify in the docs soon here. But just want to point out that you want to put your Rive assets that you download from the Rive editor in a place where all your public assets, such as images or fonts for your website, live, so that it's publicly accessible. What the web runtime is going to do is it's going to make a fetch call given whatever this string you provide is here. So if it makes a fetch call to a CDN or wherever it's hosted on a URL, it'll do that. Or if you provided a string of, in this case, marker.riv, what it's going to do is it's going to make a fetch call to its own website / markers_.riv, because I didn't provide any kind of path here. But if you had your public accessible assets at like a path called assets, it would look something like that. So that's just something that you'll want to look out for if you're using the web runtime. The other thing we need to provide the Rive runtime is the canvas element. So I'm going to find my canvas by get element by ID. And in this case, it should be canvas -I, where I is, again, that place in the array where this property lives. And you can see that should mirror whatever I set on this canvas element ID. Cool. Oh yeah, here's it's complaining because it doesn't think it's a canvas element, so I'm just gonna force it. I don't need to set an artboard because there's only one artboard in the file, but if I did have multiple artboards, I'd want to specify the name of the artboard. I want to set the name of the state machine, and I can find that by looking here under animation. So in this case, the name of the state machine is called motion. So I set that here. So autoplay to true. So it plays automatically. And am I missing anything? I don't think so. No. Okay. All right, so there's a caveat here. So what should have happened is as we're creating these properties and we instantiate Rive, we're passing in the canvas element. to render Rive onto, but we don't see any of those cool bouncy assets here. So let's dig in a bit in our dev console and see why. There's this type error, cannot read properties of null, reading width. And you can see that it shows the path of where this error is coming from. Let me zoom in a bit. It's coming from the actual Rive API. And it's called from that init map method that we're working in. And so this is where that gotcha comes in that I was talking about. What's happening here is Google Maps, we're telling it to create this new advanced marker. We're telling it the HTML markup of what to create and what to render on the Google map. However, and at least this is from my experimentation with the APIs here, we don't know when that canvas element is actually going to render on the actual map. So for example, like we'll tell Google Maps like, hey, create this new element, but the canvas might not actually be on the DOM yet. And what I mean by that is just like the canvas hasn't been added to my elements here. So I'm not sure if there's a way, and I haven't found it yet, for Google Maps to tell me, hey, your marker has rendered on the screen. Now you can do something. But that's what's happening here. Rive assumes that your canvas has mounted on the actual website on your DOM. And so that reason we were seeing like cannot read property width is because what the Rive runtime is doing is it's trying to figure out how to fit the Rive graphics within your canvas. And if your canvas isn't mounted on the DOM yet, and it doesn't have certain properties that the Rive runtime needs to reliably like render your graphic on screen. In this case, that width property. It would also show you like height property and things like that. These are things that like are given to the canvas element once it renders onto the actual website. Excuse me. And so we need that to kind of be reliably available before actually rendering any Rive graphic. So the little caveat here is we're going to set a little timeout. And this is a little hacky, I know, but it's not too bad. I think let's try 500 millisecond timeout. So what I'm doing here is I'm providing the set timeout. I'm basically telling my code like, hey, wait 500 milliseconds before you execute some code within this block. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting in this block the Rive runtime initialization for a given canvas. So once 500 milliseconds has passed, it's going to then create the Rive instance. So if I save that, okay, maybe 500 milliseconds is not enough. Oh no, I think we have more errors. Okay. Love. Live coding. Okay, let me see. Okay, so I'm passing in my canvas. And it should be canvas like 0, 1, 2, 3. That should be rendering here. Let's see what's going on. I don't need to wait longer, do I? Okay, so it still has issues. Let me try passing my onload. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so it didn't even hit that part. Cannot read properties of null. Let's make sure I'm actually grabbing a canvas. Okay, so I'm actually passing in a null canvas. It doesn't recognize the canvas element. Interesting. Okay, so let's see. It should be rendering something though. Okay, so if I go to this property, I should have like canvas 5. Let me even see what I is. Oh, it's 10, always. Okay, so this is the JavaScript being silly and I is... Oh, yeah, duh. I is always going to be the last thing because I've waited 2000 milliseconds. What do I need? I'm going to what do I want to do here? Okay, yeah, so the issue was I is already going to be like the last element by the time this set timeout actually executes. What I really want is the I during this for loop here. How did I? Okay, what do I want to do here? I forget. I think I can pass like some kind of function here. Let me. Okay. I'm gonna create a copy of I here. I'm just gonna use copy I. That seems like to work. Sweet. All right, let's use copy I. Yeah, because it's a new copy. That's not gonna be overwritten. Okay, cool. Okay, so there's these tiny little assets, and they're super small. We could probably make that bigger. Why are you tiny? Height is 30 by 30. Let's make it like, oh, what did I do before? 75 by 117. I'm just gonna make these a little bigger. Cool, so you can see these now. All right, so we've got, sorry for the little hiccup there. We've got different Rive assets running as these Google Maps markers. And you can see like whenever I hover over it, it's got that blah string. That blah string comes from, where did I set that? Oh, the title here for the advanced marker element. So yeah, each of these are individual canvas elements that are rendering on top of the map itself. Google Maps knows where to place them because I passed it the position, giving it a longitude and latitude. And again, we had to kind of coordinate this like timing thing. I bet if I set this a little smaller, it'll still render. Yeah, I basically just have to add a little set timeout to wait for the actual DOM to update with the actual canvas elements once Google Maps actually renders it. And once that's done, then I can use the Rive APIs to actually render the graphics onto that canvas. And then we won't get those nasty type errors anymore because it actually has width and height. So yeah, that's what we wanted to do. Again, these are static properties. these look a little silly, but I wanted to riff on this a little more and make it interactive. So there are different parts of the app that can like toggle these hover states, because say for each of these, you have to hover over each of these and figure out, what's the actual property address of all of these things. But what if I just had a list of names of things? And in that list, if I hover over each item in the list, I could have each of these hover. So we're going to be manipulating the state machine inputs to handle that. 1 second. Cool. All right, so I'm going to now center this around where I'm from, Chicago, because I want to play with the autocomplete APIs. So 1 sec while I grab or whatever the latitude and longitude is here. Okay, I'm going to center the map in Chicago. And I'm going to, for now, comment this bit out because we don't want to iterate over properties anymore. We want to iterate over things that I search. So I'm going to take out these properties because we don't need them. All right. So now we're going to revisit this HTML block that I was kind of ignoring earlier. I said we'd get back to. It's this form element. Not really a form, but we're mainly using it so we can get this text input up here. So in this text input, you'll see here, I've added this text input so I can type things. And ideally what I can use is another of Google Maps, or sorry, Google's, what do you call it? API offerings, which is the autocomplete offering. So again, this is like if you're on Google Maps website and you start searching for a restaurant, all you need to do is type like 1 or 2 letters, right? And it pops up with, relevant places in that area. Might be a restaurant that it picks up and things like that. And I want to use that API because I don't want to build a self like search engine myself. And so this is another offering that they offer. I think this is from the Places API. And so once I type in a place here, I want to pick a destination, and I want the map marker to actually render there, that dynamic Rive element. And so let's just take a look at the code and see what we're going to do here. But yeah, all the HTML up is for this form here is just a title with an input and a label, and this input is what we'll be grabbing the value from. So it's an autocomplete, it's a text input. All right, back into the JavaScript side. I'm going to create a new function called init autocomplete. And the reason this is async is because we need to await grabbing the library from the Places library so I can grab the autocomplete APIs. And so what this looks like is, let's see, autocomplete is equal to await google.maps.import library. Again, this is the Places library as google.maps.places library. So we can make TypeScript happy. All right, and let's create a reference to this autocomplete API. So new autocomplete. And similar to the map API, what we want to do is pass it the actual input element that is going to be working with this autocomplete API. So in this case, this would be a document, get element by ID. And this is going to be the ID of this text input. So what did I call it? Autocomplete as HTML input element. And then it also takes some configuration options here. So you can spell out what kind of search options you want the autocomplete API to provide. And I think there's a number of different places that you can restrict it to. I'm going to restrict it to establishments. You can restrict it to countries and cities and things like that. So I'm going to set component restrictions, country being the US. And with the autocomplete API, it can provide a load of data, of course, because it's Google, right? It can provide the latitude and longitude of a place. It can provide the address, the name, an identifier for the place that it's picked, and much, much more metadata than we probably need for this prototype. So I want to cut down on the actual amount of data that I'm grabbing. And the reason I'll want to do that is because if I were to have this app in production long-term for many users to use, tapping into the Google Maps APIs, of course, can come at some cost. It's free to use, and they definitely have free credits, which is what I'm using right now. And so that's nice to just sandbox things and play with it. But depending on the amount of data that you're grabbing for each place, like that can be costly on the Google Cloud platform. And so it's just to cut down on costs, you only want the amount of data that you need. So to cut down on the amount of data, you can provide a fields parameter here where you specify an array of the actual things that you want from a given place that you search. So I want the place ID. I want the geometry. The geometry will give me the actual coordinates, the latitude and longitude of where to put the pin. I want the name of the place, and I want the formatted address. Cool. All right, so if I check this out, and I type in something like, let me zoom in a bit. If I do Willis Tower, will it complete? No. Oh, because I need to call this. So similar to how we were calling init map at the bottom, we're going to call init autocomplete. Oh no, I have issues with this. Cannot load Google Maps correctly. Okay. That's interesting. One other thing I need to do is maybe I need to add a listener here. So the thing I was going to do, if this worked, was add a listener to when a user has chosen a place. Google, the APIs have these like listeners you can set for specific events, and then have callbacks in JavaScript that get executed when these events occur. So there's a very similar paradigm that we'll take a look at in the Rive runtime. But let's just check this out because I wonder if I need to add a listener first. So I'm going to listen for the place changed event, and I'm going to pass it this on place change callback. And this on place change. I'm going to just create an empty function for now. Okay, so it still didn't like me using this. Nice. Okay. I will try to figure this out more. All right, so I'm passing it. Let me make sure that it recognizes the input element. Okay, so it recognizes the input element. Am I getting any? Oh. Did I put this type wrong? Okay, I was a dum-dum and I put in the wrong type. It should be establishment, not establishments. So you'll want to consult the docs and be much more accurate about how you configure these APIs. Okay, cool. Well, that was confusing. Sweet. So now if I were to start typing, you can see it's using the autocomplete API to pull down relevant things in Chicago, starting with W, that are establishments. So I've got Wrigley Field here. So if I clicked on Wrigley Field, you'll see it auto-completes in the actual text input. But it's not actually populating where Wrigley Field is, which is like right here. And so this is where we're going to want to tap into, okay, so the user has chosen a place. Now we're going to dynamically add a Rive element. All right, so we're going to do something pretty similar to what we did here in this commented out code. This is where we're going to actually create the marker. So I'm going to uncomment this bit, and oh, actually, I also need to grab this bit here, load in the advanced marker library. So once I have the advanced marker library, I can create a new advanced marker. But also, I want to get the actual place that was chosen from the user and create a variable reference to that. So I'm going to just say const place is equal to my autocomplete API reference dot get place. So again, this is all Google stuff. This comes from creating that new autocomplete instance here. Okay, so I've got a place. And if my place has a geometry, oh my gosh, I can't spell. Geometry. Just making sure that it has latitude and longitude so we can actually put it in there, because sometimes I've noticed that it doesn't. I'm going to create a new place. So I created a interface here in TypeScript earlier as I was kind of prototyping this. And so I'm going to create a new place object. It's going to have a position of latitude and longitude. It's going to have an address to display and a name. So I'm just going to create that now from the autocomplete API data. So I'm going to do const new place is equal to position lat. I have to get place.geometry.location.lat. Cool question. I keep wondering what's inside don't show this because of the file name. I'm sure it's just API keys. You're correct. It is my API keys. And because these live on YouTube, I don't want that out there. I could rotate it, but you don't need to see that. If you want, you could go earlier in the stream. I showed kind of like the docs of basically what's inside that, and it's just this script tag, and I have my API key inside it, and I'm just loading that in my HTML. So, yeah, that's all it is. Cool. So I'm gonna keep building up my place here. My address is gonna be place.formatted address. Again, these are fields that, again, I requested data for from maps. And I'm also going to give it the name, which is place.name. All right, so I've got this like object of data, and this is kind of like those hard-coded properties that we saw from the last example. I want to push this onto an array so I can keep track of all my places. So I'm going to do added places dot push new place. Why don't you like this? Oh, I need a longitude. Place dot geometry dot location dot longitude. All right, now pass in the new place. Current IDX is equal to, I'm just going to take the last element of the array, which is added places dot length -1. So again, I'm creating a new index for each canvas. New place dot position. This is how I'm creating my marker. For the title, I'll use place dot name. All right. And now I want to do that set timeout trick where I wait for the canvas to actually mount on the DOM. We'll give it 500 milliseconds. And use the Rive bit that I created. So this thing here. All right. Marker. Okay. Another thing I had in here is this click listener. This is what shows that pop-up. So I'm going to create same thing here. When the user clicks on the dynamic Rive thing, it should show up a pop-up. I think that's all I need. Let me see. All right, so let's check this out. If I do Wrigley Field again, it should pop up this dynamic marker icon. Cool. All right, this is what we pretty much wanted. The data in here was really geared towards showing properties, not specific locations. So that's why there's like all this undefined data, because here would be like the price or the bedrooms, bathrooms, whatnot. Let's rip some of this out. Yay. Okay, so if I do Willis Tower, should get a canvas here. Sweet. And you can see that I have that loaded callback running. Now if I want to add more things, I can add Wrigley Field. It'll add more Google Maps things. No pin drop initial animation. I wish I was kind of hoping I'd have more time at the end of the live stream to do more things, but this went by pretty quickly, so I sadly probably won't have time to tweak more things here. But you could definitely riff on this. At the end of this live stream, I'll push up this code onto like one of my GitHub repositories, and it'll include the Rive asset so you can play with it. I'll also try and get JC to actually publish this thing into the community so you can remix it and add your own pin drop animations if you want. I am not as skilled, so yeah, we've got this going on here, and yeah, we're dynamically creating this list of places. One thing I kind of wanted to do, and I'm gonna cheat here and use my pre-built example that I was riffing on to kind of prep for this stream, is if I had like a list of the places that I chose here in like a box, and if I hovered over each of these elements, I could have each of these inputs be toggled. So I'm going to try and just copy and paste some code real quick just to kind of show what that would look like. So first, I want to build out that HTML. Also, I don't think this was actually needed. I think it's left over. Okay, so I've got this places container. It's nothing special. It's just going to render a box on top of my map. Let's see. Copy some CSS in here. So that's going to just render that block. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to grab a reference to this unlisted element where I'm going to be adding places, and just add to that dynamically. So I'm going to what did I do? Okay, I'm gonna have this legend UL element. I'm gonna reference my UL element in that HTML. And apologize for flying through this real quick. Just want to try and wrap up the stream, but finish out this project. So the name of this UL element is called added places. UL list element. And what do I want to do? I want okay. I'm going to create this helper function called add places to list, which given a place and a Rive state machine input for that hover input, and the actual marker, we'll actually add it to a list here and associate it with the state machine input to hover the actual correct Rive instance. Okay. So for this, I need to actually get the state machine input. Some input. State machine input. SM input is equal to r dot state machine inputs. Name of the state machine is motion. And I'm just going to get the only input there. Oh, I need to have a list of state machine inputs. So let's add it to the list once I grab that. Some inputs. And I'm going to add place to list. So this is that big long helper function that's basically coordinating, creating like a legend. So I'm going to just add, what does this take? A place. This should be new place, I think. SM input and the actual marker. A marker. Okay, so hopefully I was able to fly through this and get this working. Okay, so you can see here I've got, I added Wrigley Field and the pin popped up and it showed up in this list. Now if I hover over this, it should also hover the actual pin, because what I'm doing is once I created that Rive instance, I grabbed the state machine input, which is hover. I'm adding that to a list that I'm keeping track of, and I'm calling this helper function that I created to basically say, hey, given a place and a state machine input, like I mentioned, I'm going to be creating this list item element, which is this Wrigley Field bit with the little dot. And when I mouse enter this or hover over it, I want to set that hover input to true. And same thing when hovering out, set it to false. And when I click on it, it should open this window here. So yeah, that's kind of what I mainly wanted to show for this demo, is creating a list here. Let's add more. I'll add Willis Tower. I'll add one of my favorite restaurants, Au Cheval. Oh no. It did not like adding that. Willis Tower. Wrigley Field. Oh, it's because it's in a form element, and when I hit enter, it does not. It thinks I'm reloading the page. Au Cheval. And I'll add one more for good measure. I'll do Lincoln Park Zoo. Cool. So as I was adding these things, you could see it was adding all these different state machine inputs. There might be some overlap issues, but no, actually it's probably fine. And yeah, it was adding these dynamically. If I click into some of these, you'll see that it's there's some confusion here. There's probably a slight bug in the code, but it's popping up the pop-up for each of these markers. I can even make this a little prettier. Instead of doing property.price, let's do property.name. So if I do Willis Tower, yeah, now I'm just rendering the actual name and address, and I probably just need to expand this to accommodate the size of the Rive file, at the Rive canvas. So yeah, that's all I wanted to go over today. Is this was a really cool thing I discovered with Google Maps. It seems like a pretty recent offering that you can tap into their APIs, create interesting dynamic content. If you're someone who works in the Rive editor and makes some cool stuff there, you can probably make some really interesting things here. Some things I wanted to riff on if I had time were like going back into the editor and making another number input on the state machine for different colors that represent different things, like if it's a restaurant, if it's an attraction site, if it's like a fitness center, and things like that. And you can just build on top of that and it'd be like color coded. But yeah, that can hold off for maybe another stream or something. But yeah, if you want to check out the Google Maps APIs, their documentation is pretty extensive. Pretty neat that you can add like custom content, which allows us to add Rive for Google Maps markers. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful. And let's see if there's any last minute questions before I gotta hop off. The bottom ripple is not visible. Yeah, it might be cut off. I assume you were talking about like in the pop-up. Yeah, it might be cut off from the container. The overflow hidden or too small canvas. It could also be like this is from the actual element. So it's not going to actually show the entire I guess bottom half of the element. It might be if I like move this up a bit. Oh, there is a bottom part. So okay. Yeah. So the actual original asset did have like an actual bigger ellipse. But yeah, this was anchored to the bottom. So yeah, that's a good point. It could be moved up and then you could show the entire ripple. Yeah. All right. So that seems like that's it. There's no more questions. Feel free to leave any comments in Discord or in the chat after this if you do have any comments or concerns. And I'll push up this code again and include it in the description box at some point after this stream lands, so you can see the code for yourself, play around with it. But yeah, if you do want to play with it, you will need your own API keys. I will not be pushing that part up. And yeah, you can just check the Google Maps docs for that. So thanks everyone for hanging. This was super fun to build. And if you want to see anything else you'd like to see there for the Rive runtimes and other technologies, let us know. And thanks. Bye.